Okay, welcome again for this second part of the Delhi University MSc Botany Entrance Exam 2020 question paper. This is the detailed solution and explanation video for question number 16 to question number 30. And if you want to download this question paper, you would just have to go to the NTA website and go to their download section and fill the year, exam type, and the paper type, and you will get the question paper. So coming towards the question number 16, the myosin head decoration experiment reveals that. So this is actually a very tough question because generally that myosin head decoration experiment is not in the course. So you just have to read it from certain good books like The Cell by Alberts, or I guess it is in Cooper also. But the myosin head experiment, if I remember, I have read it in The Cell by Alberts. So yes, you have to read that book if you like. If you want to do such type of question, you just have to read such books also. Okay, so coming towards the answer, so the myosin head decoration experiment reveals that microfilaments are composed of G-actin and are polar in nature. So let's read a little bit about this. So on the left hand side, you can see the myosin protein. When it is degraded by trypsin, so it converts it breaks into two part, the light meromyosin and the heavy meromyosin. The heavy meromyosin on the activity by papain is broken down into S1 and S2 subparts. The subfragment 1 or S1, or simply the myosin head group, the S1 is called the myosin head. So now we understand that what is myosin head. Now on the rightmost side, the X-ray kind of figure that you are seeing, it's the cryo-EM image for the myosin head, which is attached to the actin filament. You can see in the cartoon model also. So what was the experiment? It was the experiment, I'll not be giving the details of the experiment, we'll just come to the results. That when short actin filaments were decorated with myosin heads, the concentration of G-actin was increased to promote further actin polymerization. So this concludes that okay, microfilaments are composed of more of G-actin. Now the answer says that it's the microfilaments are also polar in nature. How they are polar? Because the filament growth at the plus strand is more compared to the minus strand, and the electron microscopic images shows that the bound myosin head appear as arrowhead pointing towards the negative end. So there were a kind of pole formation where the negative side, like a polar nature was introduced in the complete filament, a negative pole and a positive pole. And on the negative pole, the myosin head groups are arranged like arrowheads, so that's why they are called as myosin head decoration. And on the right hand side, the G actin filaments were polymerized, which were on the plus side. So as the question says, the myosin head decoration experiment reveals that the microfilaments are composed of G actin and are polar in nature. Next question, asexual fruiting body consisting of conidiophores aggregated into parallel bundles is termed as. So the answer is cinema. Let's just see the other options also. So Sporodochium or Sporodocium, whatever you pronounce it, is a vigorously crowded cluster of conidiophores arising from a hyphal mass in the form of a cushion, usually formed on host plants, parasitized by mitosporic fungi of the form order tubercularials. So you can see how the Sporodocium looks like. Next is Pycnidium. It is a flask-shaped asexual fruiting body bearing conidiophores and conidia on its internal cavity and occurring in various mitosporic imperfect fungi and ascomycetes. Next is the Acervulus. It is an asexual fruiting body that comes out from the epidermis of the host plant, parasitized by fungi or order Melanchonials of order Deuteromycota. And finally, our cinema. On the left hand side, you can see it. Cinema is an asexual fruiting body that bears compact parallel aggregates of conidiophores that fuse in bundles to form a strand-like structure resembling wheat stalk. So the answer is cinema. Next, which one of the following is incorrect for Puccinia graminis triticae? the causal organism for black rust of wheat. So the answer out of the 4 is that this statement is incorrect, that urideniospores are dikaryotic thick-walled spores incapable of reinfecting wheat plant but infect the alternate host barberry. Why? Because urideniospores, or uridospore as we call them, are thin-walled spores. So the answer says thick-walled, so it is wrong. So they are thin-walled spores produced by the uridium, generally on leaves under surface, and urideniospores usually have two dikaryote nuclei within one cell. In mass, they are usually pale brown in contrast to teleospore, which are generally dark brown. So they are actually thin-walled spores, not thick-walled spores. So the answer here is, as you can see, the second option, that urideniospores are dikaryotic thick-walled spore incapable of reinfecting wheat plant but infecting the alternate host barberry. Next question, plant pathogen Phytophthora, albugo and Plasmaphora belong to the kingdom. So yes, if you have read the like mycology and plant pathology paper in the BSc, in your BSc course, of course you might have read about these fungus, the Phytophthora, albugo and Plasmaphora. But yes, the question is indeed a tough one, because generally we have not read about this kingdom Staminipilla. If you have read that, I guess it's in my third lecture that I have told you people. Like if you are in my class and you have read my lectures, then of course you will get it. Where I have shown you the inclusion of a separate kingdom, the Staminipilla and the Staminophytons. There I have told you that these the Phytophthora, albugo, Plasmaphora and some other fungi are also kept in this Staminipilla. But let's read a little bit about this. So Staminipilla is a new kingdom name for oomycete fungi. Staminopillans are remarkably diverse yet monophyletic group that includes planktonic diatoms, large multicellular marine seaweeds, brown algae or phaeophytes, water moles and other fungus, including the ones mentioned in the question. So this figure I'm sure I have drawn on the blackboard if you were in my class, so of course you will come to know. According to the new phylogenetic studies, they have shown a new kingdom Staminipilla. So apart from this kingdom, Monera, Protista, Plantae, Fungi and Animalia, and then that the objectionable Archaea, the separate kingdom which generally originate from between Monera and Protista. There is another inclusion of a separate kingdom nowadays which is called as Staminipilla, although there are various school of thoughts that some supports this and some do not support this. So we won't go into details of that. So the answer for this question was that the plant pathogen Phytophthora, albugo and Plasmaphora belong to the kingdom Staminipilla. Next question, which one of the following pairs is incorrectly matched? So yes, out of the 4, the correct answer which is not clearly matched is the dikaryotic hyphae Chytridiomycota. So the answer is because most chytrids are unicellular. A few form multicellular organism and hyphae which have no septa between cells. So they are cenocytic. So that's why they will be you can say that this dikaryotic hyphae are generally not present in Chytridiomycota, and the other 3 options are correct. So please read them properly so that you will come to know that okay, only this third option is wrong, the first, second and fourth are correct. So just like read them, absorb them, digest them, whatever you can do. Fine. So next question is, in myxomycetes the diploid stage is represented by. So the answer is Plasmodium and Sporangium. You can see it on the right hand side. Like if you are in my class today only, I have told you this myxomycetes, we have started the new kingdom there. This Myxomycota, we were discussing about slim molds and their affinities towards the protistan as well as fungi. So there only this stage of myxomycetes were recognized, in which you can just see that the zygote, actually on the top the zygote is this diploid one, and then zygote form the feeding plasmodium. The feeding plasmodium then whenever get mature, it that converts into the young sporangium. The sporangium has the spores, and then sporangium is also the diploid structure. It forms after meiosis, it forms the haploid spores. So obviously the spores are haploid, and then the spores germinate and form either the amoeboid like cells what you call as the plasmodial like appearance of the cell, the like amoeba like structure, or the swarm cells which are biflagellated, they undergo syngamy and they again form the zygote. So the answer for this is plasmodium and sporangium. You can see the sporangium as well as plasmodium, both are diploid. So mixed amoeba are spores in myxomycetes that possess pseudopodia and are known for their amoeba like appearance and behavior. And swarm cells are cells with two flagella, that is whip like structure used in swimming. So this I just told you because it was looking important to tell you that what are swarm cells and what are mixed amoeba. Rest you can easily understand from the figure itself. Coming to the next question, which one of the following show continuous spore production throughout the growing season due to the activity of basal meristem in the sporophyte? So the answer out of the four is Anthoceros. You can see here the activity of basal meristem. You can see the LS of Anthoceros sporangium on the right hand side. You can see the spore tetrad, the pseudoelaters, the spore mother cells, the elater cells, the epidermis, the capsule wall, the sporangious layer, the columella. Then on the lower side there it is surrounded by involucre, and then finally at the base above the foot there is the meristematic layer. So the meristematic tissue near the base of this horn-white sporophyte is composed of a large number of cells. By the production of new cell, the meristem is constantly causing the sporophyte to extend upward. So because of this, as the question says that which one of the following show continuous spore production throughout the growing season due to the activity of basal meristem, because regularly the sporophyte is formed and which will be subsequently forming the spore tetrad in the growing season. So this is all about the activity of the basal meristem in the sporophyte of the Anthoceros. So next question, which one of the following statement is incorrect? So the answer is in sphagnum the spore dispersal is facilitated in the peristome. So this is wrong because in sphagnum we don't see the activity of peristome. Let's see a little bit. So this is the photo of the sporangium in which it is surrounded by the this peristomial teeth, and for this to see the opening of this peristomial teeth properly, although not related to the question, but it is a very good video. You just type this term, the Auwasser die Capsule die Mosse, on YouTube, and you will find how a video in which they have clearly shown that how the peristomial teeth open for the spore dispersal. The peristome teeth are actually triangular two-ply structures which operate like trapdoors. So one layer tends to readily absorb or lose moisture, while the other has little affinity for water. What this means is that as water is lost, one side of the peristome teeth shrinks while the other does not. This results in the bending of the teeth outward. The general mechanism for the spores dispersal is as follows: that under dry condition, the calyptra, the remnant of the archegonium, drops off. The operculum is shed as a result of water loss by the annulus. The peristome teeth bend outward, and the spore wall out of the capsule. The spore falls out of the capsule and are carried by the air current. So this generally occurs in most of this bryophyte, but in sphagnum there is a different thing. The sphagnum grow in temperate swarms or the box. The capsule contain air and spores, so there is no peristome actually. As the capsule dries, it shrinks, compressing the air inside, and to your astonishment, to your surprise, up to around like 5 atmosphere of pressure is created inside the capsule, and the operculum is shut off and spores comes out of it, making a popping noise. So this all happens in the sphagnum. This is like there is no peristome in sphagnum. So the answer, this option first, the D1, that is in sphagnum spore dispersal is facilitated by peristome, is wrong, because in sphagnum it is the pressure that is created inside the capsule, and there is no peristome. Because of just that pressure, the spores comes out, and the pressure ranges from around like 3 to 5 atmosphere normally. So I hope you understood this question. Next one is, which of the following statement is incorrect about Markensia? the answer is multicellular rhizoids are present. No, wrong. Because roots are absent in bryophytes and their functions are performed by rhizoids, as we know. Rhizoidal cells are also capable to absorb moisture directly from the ground or atmosphere, facilitating bryophyte survival on the moist soil. So this we understood what are rhizoids. So the option says multicellular rhizoids are present in Markensia. Wrong, because rhizoids may be unicellular and unbranched. Examples are Anthoceros, Rixia and Markensia. So the answer should be that multicellular rhizoids are not present in Markensia. Or it may be multicellular and branched, for example sphagnum and funaria. So you can understand why the answer this option 1 which says that multicellular rhizoids are present is incorrect with respect to Markensia. Next question. Yeah, this is very important, and this is like asked several times in many many exams. This is, they are saying that one of the 5 evolutionary processes envisaged in telome theory, the one that possibly led to origin and evolution of venation in leaves and the complex anastomosing vascular system in the stem is. So they are actually asking for the telome theory. So the telome theory of Walter Zimmermann is the most comprehensive theory based on fossil record that indicates the major steps in the evolution of vascular plants. So these are the various process that happens in the telome theory. These are the evolutionary process. The first one is the overtopping. So what is overtopping? You can see in the diagram. In this process, one of the 2 dichotomizing branches of the primitive axis produced by the apical meristem outgrows or overgrows the other. Okay? So you can see that this branch is more in length compared to the other one. The larger axis thus produced become the stem, while the shorter or overtopped branches represent the beginnings of lateral branches or leaves. So the shorter one become the lateral branch. Now the earlier dichotomy will be transformed to pseudo-monopodial branch. So the earlier dichotomy will be converted into one main stem and the other one will be the lateral stem. Next one is the reduction on the downside. You can see. So in this process, the activity of terminal meristem of each telome of the truss becomes suppressed, resulting into much shorter branches, like as you can see in the figure, by decreasing the length of the telomes and mesomes. This process is responsible for the formation of microphyllous leaf of the Lycopsida and Sphenopsida, as well as the needle-like leaves of conifers. This I have told you in the class also. So like obviously it's a repetition always. Next one is the plantation. You can see here in the figure. So the process of plantation caused the telomes and mesomes of the truss to shift from a 3-dimensional pattern to a single plane, like a cruciate dichotomy to a fan-shaped dichotomy. So the process of infilling with photosynthetic and other tissues between the planted branch is called webbing, which have led to the evolution of flattened leaf-like structure with a dichotomously veined lamina. This you can see on the right hand side with the syngenous webbing. In syngenesis, actually this is an evolutionary process where tangential fusion of mesomes and telomes take place. The lateral fusion of sterile vegetative telomes and this mesomes resulted into complex anastomosing vascular system, which the question have asked. For example, polystylic condition in Selaginella. So the question is saying that the process that lead to origin and evolution of venation in leaf. So the answer comes out to be syngenesis or webbing. In the plantation, the one which I just explained, you can see the 3-dimensional structure. The one branch was behind another branch, so it looks like a 3-dimensional structure that was then converted into 2-dimensional structure to accommodate various other several functioning organs. Then finally we come to curvation on the right hand side. This evolutionary process is caused due to unequal growth of the tissues on 2 opposite flanks of the telome. So it has 2 sub processes, as you can see. The first one is recurvation. In this sub process, the telome bends inward toward an axis. So on the A part in the curvation, you can see in the diagram. So in this sub process, the telome bend inward toward an axis. The inward projecting sporangia on sporangiophora equisetum is the result of this process. Fine. On the right hand side, you can see the B1, in which the curvation is towards the outer side. That is called the incurvation. In this process, the fertile telome bends downward, resulting in the downward shifting of the sporangia from terminal to the ventral surface of the leaf. This sub-process is responsible for the formation of ventral position of the sporangia in which one? Okay, if you have attended my lecture, you will immediately say, yes sir, it is in the fern or Pteropsida leaf. So actually this sub-process is responsible for the formation of ventral position of the sporangia in the fern or Pteropsida leaf. So hope you understood that the webbing like phenomena that is happening in the syngenesis was actually responsible for the origin and evolution of venation and leaf, and the complex anastomosing vascular system was evolved. This is represented by the syngenesis of webbing like webbing phenomena in the telome theory. So next one, which one of the following is mismatched? The answer is stomium. Why? Because they are saying the stomium is a membranous covering of a sorus in teres. No, you can see in the figure on the right hand side, indusium is actually the membranous outgrowth on the undersurface of fern leaf that covers and protects the developing sporangia. So it is not the stomium, it is the indusium that is actually surrounding. It's a membranous outgrowth that undersurface of the fern on the undersurface of the fern leaves that covers and protects, surrounds the developing sporangia. Stomium, obviously you can just see the name stome means mouth. So it cannot be any covering, it should be something related to opening. So as you saw, the stoma or the stomium, these words are for the mouth. The stoma means mouth, so it might be representing some kind of opening, but it cannot, like if you just know the term stoma, so you will immediately find that okay, this stomium cannot be any membranous covering of anything, it should always be a opening of something, because stoma means mouth or opening. So as you understood that the membranous covering of sorus in teres is known as indusium. So next question, which one of the following is incorrect about Neetum? So the answer is development of female gametophyte is monosporic is the correct option, because during megasporogenesis in Neetum, the primary sporogenous cells form 8 to 20 linearly arranged sporogenous cells after division. These sporogenous cells then act as megaspore mother cells, which after meiosis forms 4 megaspore nuclei. Fine, since no walls are laid down after meiotic division of megaspore mother cells, all the 4 nuclei remain within the mother cell to form a tetranucleate cynomegaspore. Hence, we can say that Neetum has a tetrasporic development of female gametophyte and not the monosporic one. So the option 4, that is development of female gametophyte is monosporic in Neetum, is incorrect. So that means the option 1st, 2nd and 3 are correct. So you don't have to just read out the 4th option. Okay, 4th option is incorrect. Why it is incorrect? Just read the explanation which sir is giving and then you just go ahead with the other question. No, read that 1st, 2nd and 3rd are actually the correct option. So they are just informing you 3 new sentences or 3 new concepts. Please read them and please see them, that if you can just read more about them, because generally the question revolve around these concepts only. Next question is the type of stomata where the stoma is surrounded by 3 subsidiary cells, one of which is significantly smaller than the other 2 are termed as. So the correct answer is anisocytic. This is a repetitive question, repeated several times in Delhi University entrance exam. Like if you are seeing my videos from 2014, like question paper 2014 till now, you will be seeing this question almost 3 to 4 times repeated every time. So you will immediately recognize this slide and the answer also. So here I have just given the explanation for few important stomata type and the figure also. Please spare me for my bad drawing. Okay, so let's read the various kind of stomata. So the answer you understood. Okay, anisocytic, we will come to this. Parasitic stomata means the stomata surrounded by 2 subsidiary cells which are parallel to the vertical axis of the guard cell or the pore. Anomocytic means irregular cell. In this, the guard cells surrounded by subsidiary cells which are not distinct in arrangement from the surrounding epidermal cells, having a similar size and shape. Anisocytic, the one which is the answer to our question, is that in which the 3 subsidiary cells around guard cells are present, one is smaller than the other 2. So this is what the question also asked. Cyclocytic means in which the 4 or more subsidiary cells surround the guard cell in a ring like structure. And finally, diacetic, it is not in the figure, but you just google it, you will get the image, of course. So I'll just explain it. The diacetic means the stomata have guard cells surrounded by 2 subsidiary cells with their joining walls roughly at 90 degree to the vertical axis of the guard cell. So you understood what are the types of the stomata. I guess they will ask it again, because this is a very common question asking. They have asked it several times in the question papers. So just read these types and just read the or just relate it to the figure also, so that you will come to know all the types of stomata. So answer in this question was anisocytic, because there were 3 subsidiary cells around guard cells, one is smaller than the other 2. So coming to the next question. Which one of the following statement is incorrect for non-articulate lenticephale? Okay, so this is from the anatomy lecture. Fine. If I can give you 30 seconds, you will read the question, the option, and you will give me the correct answer. Just comment in the option if you know the correct answer before seeing my explanation, because that will encourage me in my class also. But yes, the question asks that which one of the following statements is incorrect for non-articulate lenticephale, and the fourth option, the latex containing cells present in hevea are examples of non-articulated lenticephale. This is wrong. Why? Just see that first we will read what is a lenticephale, and then the articulated and non-articulated lenticephale. So a lenticephale is a type of elongated secretory cell found in the leaves and or stems of plant that produce latex and rubber as secondary metabolites. Lenticephales may be divided into 2 types: the articulated lenticephales, that is composed of a series of cells joined together, or non-articulated lenticephales that consist of one long sinocytic cell. So what happens in the hevea? So you can see the figure on the right hand side. These are the articulated lenticephales which are found in hevea, and the other one is the example of how the non-articulated one looks like. So the articulated lenticephales will be having composed of series of cells joined together, looks like a pipe like structure. And in non-articulated lenticephales, they consist of one long sinocytic cell. So sinocytic cell means there will be no separation or no septa between the wall. So in what happens in hevea brasiliensis? So the hevea brasiliensis main commercial, it's very important that hevea brasiliensis you just know, because they generally ask a lot about this. So this is the main commercial source of natural rubber, cis 1,4 polyisoprene polymer, and rubber is synthesized in the rubber particles of articulated lenticephales. So that means the hevea has articulated lenticephales and not the non-articulated one. Hope you understood why the option 4 is incorrect, because they told that the hevea has non-articulated lenticephales, although hevea has articulated lenticephales. Okay, so next question. I hope this will be the last question of this video. According to Hansteen histogen theory, peribulum, one of the 3 histogens, forms. So if you like, this is a very easy question from like class 12th NCERT book or any reference book of Pradeep or something. You will get the histogen theory given by Hansteen. I'll just read it. You can see the figure on the upper right hand side. According to the Hansteen histogen theory, the root apical meristem consists of 3 cell initiating regions, the dermatogen, peribulum and pleurome, called the histogens. The theory covers both root and shoot apical meristem. In a mature root, the dermatogen forms the epidermis, the peribulum forms the cortex, and pleurome forms the vascular cylinder and the surrounding ground tissue. So the question is asking, according to histogen theory, peribulum forms what? So as we have explained in the second point, that peribulum forms the cortex. So I hope you understood the answer also. In the next video, we will be dealing with the question number 31 to question number 45. I will be giving you my detailed solution with explanation. And if you find any mistake in the solution, please do comment. Please like the video, comment and subscribe to appreciate my work. And you can also share it among your fellow classmates or the aspirants which are preparing for the MSc Botany entrance exam. And please stay tuned for more upcoming solution videos of various MSc entrance exams related to biological sciences.